I'm Patrick Henry Bass. I'm the editorial projects director at Essence Magazine. Well, I know cultural experiences have totally changed and transformed my life. I grew up in a small town called Laurinburg, North Carolina, and I've written about this in a book called In Our Own Image, which I co-authored with Karen Pugh. I talk about growing up in Laurinburg, which was a very, very rural community, maybe 45 miles from Fayetteville, North Carolina, which to me was the big city. And they had a mall, and the mall had a peanut shack and a Chick-fil-A and like a Belk's, and I thought that that was the height of sophistication, and we only got to go there once a year, and that was right around Christmas time. This would be in the late 70s, early 80s, just growing up, and in that town there were a number of teachers who went to a place called the Laurinburg Institute. And the Laurinburg Institute was very important because in 1908 there were disciples of Booker T. Washington who settled in Laurinburg. Now, I don't believe that that was a part of their destination. I just think they were exhausted. So they built this all-black private school, and they educated many of the teachers who were in our community, and those teachers always talked about the world beyond Laurinburg. And so I was always curious about the world, but I just had no idea how to see the world, because the only world I had a chance to see was the road to Fayetteville once a year. And so I was able to discover the world at a very young age at a public library that was no bigger than probably a wealthy person's living room in Laurinburg on the other side of the tracks. Where we lived was the all-black side of town. We were very happy on that side of town because everybody lived in that side of town. There was a lawyer who lived in the side of town. There were people who worked in factories like my dad. There were nurses like my mom, educators. So we all coexisted together quite wonderfully. And this library had the coolest water fountain, and I really went there initially just for the water, because in the summertime we would make a lot of noise, and our parents were all at work, my cousins and I, and my grandmother would watch her soap operas from noon until like it would seem like an eternity, but actually to 4:30 when the edge of night went off. And so we really had no place to play. So like starting in April, it would feel like it was 1,000 degrees, so we would head to this public library for this really cool water, and there I discovered books and magazines. And we started with Curious George, oddly enough, but then we went on to other books like Encyclopedia Brown, and then eventually we got to Dickens, and I was immersed in these worlds in which I wondered how in the world could I take these trips, these journeys that these characters took. And so I kept reading more and more books. And then I discovered that along with these books I would watch television programs, and beyond just what I would see on regular television like The Bionic Man or The Bionic Woman or Battlestar Galactica, we had public television. And sometimes public television would do adaptations of those novels.